Hey everyone, here's another study. It's white to play and win. Yeah, looking at this position, it's quite locked up by these stacks of pawns. So white has this knight on e8, but all the squares that it can jump to are protected by black, so it can't leave, it's trapped. Similarly, black's bishop is stuck on h8 because it's blocked in by its own pawn on f6. Also, it can't leave this diagonal because it has to keep an eye over the h8 square to make sure the h7 pawn doesn't promote. And so the plan for black defensively is to come over with the king, capture this knight, and help make sure white can't promote their pawn. For white, the plan is to come in somehow and maybe accomplish something with the king this way. The reason that we know those are the plans, even though we haven't calculated what will happen, is because if you look at all the squares that the black pawns are covering, there's no other way white can enter. Maybe white can come this way, but it takes too many tempi for that, and black can always stay here with the king and stop, or go over and capture the knight first. Similarly, for black, white controls enough squares, and black doesn't have time to come in this way and try to take white's pawns because the white king will be moving up and promoting. So the first two moves are relatively obvious based on that reasoning. Black's going for the plan of capturing this knight while white's coming in with the king. Here's kind of the decision point. What do? Do we leave the knight here and take another move with the king? Do we sacrifice the knight on one of these four squares? So between these five choices, you can pause, try to think about which ones seem promising, what the variations would be. I would say this study is actually really cool. There's a lot of subtleties and practical endgame concepts that would be useful. So, yeah, it's definitely worth looking into. A couple options I eliminated pretty quickly. One is leaving the knight right here, because if we come in with the king, after black takes on e8, black covers these two squares. So our king can't come in. Our king has to retreat. We have no other legal moves. And after any move, black can start to come in with their king and eventually capture this pawn. So we're lost. Similarly, if we sacrifice on f6, yeah, this kind of looks bad just because it frees up the bishop and it seems wrong to unlock black's position. But there's also a very specific and easy, simple reason why this doesn't work. If we try to come in with our king, again, black manages to control these two squares. We can't push h8 because the bishop still covers it. And again, our king's going to have to retreat somewhere, and then black can come in and take the pawn. So leaving the knight doesn't work. Taking on f6 doesn't work. Going to d6 doesn't work for a similar reason. Notice that it's good for black to go here to d7 with the king rather than going to d8. If we go to d8, Peter says this position is actually a draw. I'm not sure of all the intricacies of how this is drawn for white, but for fun, you could play this with a friend and see if you can manage to hold it as white, or you can play it with a computer. But just by going to d7 instead of d8, black can stop this. And after this trade, black is winning. Even if black gives this pawn up, and all the tempi it takes for the white king to come over and capture it, black has time to come and take these two pawns and then push their passer, and with the bishop, it's enough to win. So that's why knight d6 also doesn't work. So based on the process of elimination, yeah, the two options were knight c7 or knight g7. Yeah, even before calculating, I just thought knight g7 seemed promising. It's a very study-like move, doing something strange, giving up a knight for no compensation, it seems like. But yeah, the problem with knight c7 is even though we can come and win this bishop back, as soon as we go in to capture this bishop, the black king closes in on us. And once we take the bishop, we get stalemated. And if you know some of your king and pawn endgames, you can't always promote rook pawns, even if your king is controlling the squares in front of it, because the opposing king can trap you in front of the pawn. So knight takes c7 is at least a draw, but it's not a win. So that leaves us with knight g7. And again here, if you come in with the king, yeah, you can shuffle back and forth. But as soon as you go for that bishop, um, black will shut you in. And so I was kind of stuck here for a while. I was trying to calculate it um, on a board, and I couldn't really see how to proceed. And I had thought of maybe giving up this h pawn as well. The h pawn is what gets us stalemated in all these variations. But then, yeah, after this point, um, I couldn't see. Yeah, I was hallucinating, or it just didn't strike me that we can hit the sixth rank. And yeah, no matter how we do it, no matter where the black king is, eventually they have to leave the defense of the pawn. And again, even though black has the opposition here, when you have a pawn on the fifth rank, as long as you control one of these three squares in front of it, again, excluding the exceptions about the rook pawn, you can win. And so all you have to do is push the pawn. Yeah, black's not stalemated here because you don't control the e7 square, so black has to leave, and then you promote. Black has one little try here, where if you push f7 right away, it's a stalemate. I wonder if you can go back. That might be... Yeah, that's also winning. But there's also a simpler move, just king f7. And now you can make sure you have control over the path to promotion, and black's also not going to get stalemated. So that's how you win this position. Going back to the starting position, both kings rush up. You sacrifice the knight, and then you sacrifice the pawn too to clear up squares for the white king. And now, even though, whether or not black goes here or here, regardless of whether it looks like they have the opposition, let's say it's this position, you can still take the sixth rank. So whether they go to f7 or f8, if f8 and they have the opposition, it's still fine. Instead of going to g6, you go to h6. And again, maybe it looks like they have the opposition, but they lose that pawn no matter what. Before wrapping up, there's just two cool subtleties I wanted to show. The first is, yeah, we see that white's access to the sixth rank is very important. So in that variation where you sacrifice on c7, black actually has a chance to mess this up. If black goes to d7 instead of d8, this gives white the opposition. And because black has to lose control of the e6 square, now white can come in to the sixth rank. And again, this is the same issue where no matter what, black's going to lose the c6 pawn. Now, here you might think, okay, well, black can give up the move by moving their bishop to g7. But because they waste this tempo, now white is in time to capture the bishop. And the king is just one move too slow. See here in this position, if black had the extra move instead of taking time to move the bishop out and back, then we could stalemate. But because black took those two moves to move the bishop, we're in time to move our king out. So it's very important here. Sorry, after knight c7, king c7, it's important for the king to go to d8 instead, because then when we come up with our king, black can grab the opposition. The other kind of subtlety is the reason it doesn't matter whether or not the king has the opposition after this point is because the c7 pawn is still there, even though black loses the opposition here. If white tries to come in via the sixth rank, this d6 square is controlled, and now black can just stalemate white. So yeah, this is kind of a cool study. Obviously, it's a very composed position. Like in a real game, I don't know how you'd manage to get both the bishop and knight stuck in this way, but it actually uses a lot of real endgame concepts. So that's why I named it King and Pawn 101. Concepts like the exception of the rook pawn, controlling the three squares in front of a pawn on the fifth rank, um, pushing a king away from the defense of the pawn. I've also included a link to this Chess Mood article if you want to read more about basic king and pawn endgames. It has a lot of good stuff that I mentioned in this video and also some other information.